What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Legends of Tomorrow, Season 3, Episode 6, Helen Hunt. So, a lot of more fun stuff going on. Yeah, we've got Helen of Troy showing up in old-time Hollywood, when things are just kicking off. You got, the Warner Brothers working on their films. You got K&G Productions, I think. And so, there's always that rivalry, and so Helen of Troy shows up, and she's considered the most beautiful woman to ever live or something like that. And so, of course, as soon as she steps in, all the men are just like, oh my gosh, look at her, and, falling over her. And I think it is documented that men used to fight over her beauty. And so, of course, when she steps in the room, men start fighting over her. So ultimately, the team have to try to stop this war happening between Warner Brothers and K&G. And yeah, that's pretty much the premise of this episode. It's kind of goofy sounding, but it really is a lot of fun. You've got Damien Dark and his little posse showing up to try to stop the Legends. It's Damien Dark. I can't remember his daughter's name, but the girl that we saw last episode that she seemed like a psychic, maybe some sort of witch. Apparently, she's his daughter. So she has the sort of the same abilities, but at the same time, she's able to I don't know. Her abilities seem a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? Because his powers come from this totem that we saw in Arrow, but her powers, I'm not really sure where they come from. I think she's got some sort of ability as well, but anyway. But yeah, so she's related to him, still not sure where she came from when he had a daughter. Actually, didn't he have... He did have a daughter, that's right. In Arrow, we saw that he did have a family. I guess he went and got his daughter from a future timeline, and she grew up and had the same powers and became evil as well. But she's there, and then also the Water Witch. Her name's Kuasa. We learn in this episode. We also come to find out, like I suspected, the foreboding comment she made at the end of last episode. If I kill you, I'm just killing myself. She's related to Amaya. Turns out she's her granddaughter. So, did we meet? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we met. Is it Amari, I believe? But we met her at one point. It turns out this is her sister, and so she was supposed to get the totem, but then her sister got it instead. So she kind of resents, I guess, her lineage a little bit, which is why she's so willing to attack and work for Dark at the same time. So yeah, so we see all this going on. Ultimately, they manage to save the day. It kind of, there's a little bit of a twist at the end whenever they do manage to capture Helen and say they're taking her back. Well, it turns out the ship doesn't work because the woman who apparently her patents built a lot of stuff going forward, since she's kind of got kicked out of her role in the movie, she had to go back to just doing phone duty pretty much. And because of that, she didn't get to do a lot of her invention patents. And so, yeah, the Wave Rider, because of that, would never get built. So they have to go convince her to go back to what she was doing. And, of course, Damien Dark shows up to foil that. But they manage to get her interested in it again. Dark and his team get stopped because Firestorm shows up, and I'll talk about that in a second. But then the most interesting thing, I think, at the end of all of it was Zari? I've already forgot her name. They called her Z in this episode a lot, so I'm forgetting her actual name now. But yeah, she's the one, I guess, in charge of taking Helen back. I'm not sure why they left her in charge. I know Sarah at the end of this episode is in a coma, so she can't really make that decision. But you'd think the rest of the team would be like, okay, we can't leave the newcomer who may do whatever she wants. We can't just leave her to do whatever she wants. Well, she decides she's not going to take Helen back to where she was because... she's just like, oh, well, that's not a good place to go. And she does say that it doesn't really affect the timeline at all. She just goes missing during the war and nothing really changes. But at the same time, it's still changing a major point in history. But she ends up taking her to Themyscira, the home of the Amazon women. So I don't really know what that means for Helen. If she's going to train to become a warrior there with the rest of the Amazonian women. She's human, so she's not like the Amazons. I don't really know how she's going to survive there, but... whatever the case, she's in a place where there are no men now to fight over her and stuff. So it is a better place for her, but I don't know. There's still that niggling feeling in me, we're just changing the timeline willy-nilly and we're just saying, oh, nothing changed, so it's okay. But it's still not right. There's still problems there. So there is a little bit of a problem with that. But I'm going to go back through and talk about a couple of the other stories. The first one to talk about is we do see Stein and Jax trying to figure out a way for Stein to not have to be on the ship anymore. Trying to give Jax full control of Firestorm so that way he doesn't need Stein and he can go home and be a granddad. Of course, it's going to take some time to get that right because, well, frankly, Stein's got to stay on the show for now. You can't just get rid of him 6 episodes in. It's probably going to be maybe halfway through the season. Maybe at the end of the season he'll finally say goodbye to the team. But he's still probably going to be on for most of the season. So there are going to be problems along the way. We know that. So in this one, a little bit of a Freaky Friday thing, they keep calling it. They end up switching bodies. So now you get to see Martin in Jax's body, so you see Jax acting all proper and talking like the professor, and you see Martin acting like Jax. And this was really funny. It was really funny to see them acting like each other. It's nothing that's not been done before, but with these two, it really works. Seeing Martin go, wait, what? Just like Jax would. It was really, really funny, and I thought they took full advantage of that. But that's about all they did with it. There are some funny moments with them acting like each other, but that's about it. There's an actress that Martin had a huge crush on as a boy, and apparently he and his wife had this whole cheat thing. It's so if you could have one famous person to cheat with, who would it be? And that would be your one pass. And so she picked Jean-Claude Van Damme, and so he jokingly said this woman, even though she's dead. And so because now she's right there in front of him, he's talking about, oh, it's my one hall pass or whatever. And then nothing happens with it. He flirts with her as Jax. He talks to her and finds out she's brilliant and beautiful, and she's like, oh my gosh, she's perfect. And at the end, she gives them both a kiss on the cheek and says, I actually prefer older men, and then they leave. And that was it. Nothing happened. It was just there to make a joke about. And I'm like, you're not taking full advantage of that. You could do some funny things with this. You could do a funny mix-up where she runs up to Jax thinking he's still Stein or something, and then just plants one on him. And it's just oh no, we're switched now. And I don't know. It would have been really funny if they could have done something goofy with it, but they didn't take full advantage of it. But ultimately, the one thing that I do have a problem with in all of this is the fact that she understands what they're saying. I get she's supposed to be really smart, but she's talking about quantum entanglement and stuff like that. And I'm just did they even know what that was back then? What is this, the 20s or 30s? It doesn't feel right that what quantum entanglement is. I don't think we learned about quantum stuff until, was it the 60s maybe? So I don't know, it felt weird listening to her talk about that stuff, even though she's way back in that time period. That was the only problem I really had with that story, though. The rest of it was enjoyable, just maybe not as funny as it could have been at times. We also see, like I said, the whole dark storyline. Obviously, Sarah wants to kill him again because of what he's done to her sister and all that stuff. But yeah, so like I said, we met this girl last episode. It turns out it's his daughter. And so because she has the same powers, when Sarah and Dark start fighting, she uses her powers on Sarah because that's Dark's loophole. I said I wouldn't use my powers. And so she's slowly sapping Sarah's energy. Firestorm shows up in the nick of time to stop her, but she's done enough damage to where Sarah is now out of commission. Now, what does this mean going forward? I don't know. It could be one of those things where they put her in the coma at the end of this episode, but next episode she's fine again. Or maybe next episode is something about how they're going to help revive her. Maybe they have to go one episode with her, healing, so that that way now the team has to work without the captain for one episode to see if they're still able to work as a team without her. I don't know. There are a few things that they could do with it. I think one of the biggest things though going forward is you have to have some hiccups in the road because frankly they've started working really well as a team. Yes, there are some problems, but Sarah's done very good as a captain to keep the problems from, I guess, maximizing. In this episode, there's a moment where Mick, Ray, and Nate are all around Helen and trying to get her in, and then all of a sudden Mick is just what? And then starts punching people, and so they start a fight there over Helen. And so, of course, she, at that moment, is all right, you three are sidelined. And that's something that makes sense. And she's doing a lot of stuff like that this season. I think she's doing stuff that makes sense. When Rip went against everybody and betrayed a lot of people last episode, she made the call to go against him, even though he's their friend. They worked together for a long time. It didn't matter to her because in that moment she realized he was out of line. And so she had to make the tough call and say, no, we're not going to stand up for you at this point, which I think is a good call. So she's made a lot of hard decisions, but she's made a lot of right decisions this season. So to see her be possibly out of commission means the team is going to have to, struggle in the next episode to deal with that, because with her in charge, things could possibly run smoothly. So I just think it's a way to sort of throw a little wrench into the plans of the team since they started to get this little groove going on. Because if they were to just have Sarah through the rest of the season and have no problems whatsoever, well then, this season would be over before it even started because they would have already found a way to stop Dark probably next episode. So that's just what I think going forward about the whole Sarah being in a coma thing. Aside from that, though, the only other thing to talk about is Zuasa. We've got, find out about Amaya's granddaughter. Find out that she apparently was supposed to get this totem but didn't. The only thing that really happens through all of this, though, is that, we see Ray at one point reacts to Zuasa's name. I guess he knows her somehow. Maybe this is something that I don't know about because possibly it has something to do with like the Vixen cartoon series. I don't know. I don't watch that. So yeah, it's kind of thrown in there randomly that he knows her, and Amaya is like, you must have known, and she's like, I don't blame you for telling me because frankly that could mess up the timeline. I would have done the same. So it's like she's totally understanding. He asks if she wants to know more, and she's like, I don't, because we are supposed to protect the timeline. And the problem that I have with this is it sort of feels like they're picking and choosing the moments that are important to protecting the timeline. Taking Helen of Troy away from Troy and putting her on Themyscira, it doesn't cause any problems with the timeline, so we're okay. But then we can't tell Amaya about her granddaughter because that could affect the timeline. If Amaya wants to leave the timeline, it's okay because the timeline hasn't set in permanently yet. But, in this moment, I don't want to know anything about the future because, who knows what that could do. You can't just pick and choose. You have to be somewhat, I guess, restrained in how you're handling the timeline. I get it's supposed to be kind of a comedy show, with some action in it. I get that. They're doing a very good job of having fun with it. But at the same time, you can't just make certain points serious and we have to take this seriously and then not make some other points serious. When you leave the time period, who cares if this, whatever her name was, the actress, who cares if she knows about the future, knows about time travel, knows about quantum entanglement? Who cares about all of that? But no, Amaya, you're not supposed to hear about your granddaughter. That's not okay. You can't do both. You have to either go full silly and not care, or you have to take it seriously. And so far, for the most part, they haven't taken it seriously. They've had a lot of fun with it. I'm glad. But it makes scenes like this where they're being all serious and like, I can't know about my granddaughter. It just makes those scenes a little bit less impactful. So I don't know why they're still trying to have moments like that whenever most of this season has just been, let's just have fun with it. So I don't know, maybe it's just me for a personal matter, but overall it's about the only thing that's really kind of stuck with me so far this season is just these moments where they kind of treat it like it's supposed to be taken seriously. Those are the points where I'm just kind of like, I prefer the serious stuff to be more character stuff. Jax and Martin trying to figure out what to do with Firestorm, Martin having a granddaughter to take care of, that stuff, I don't mind that stuff. That is serious stuff. It's stuff that they would have to deal with. But this whole thing with time travel, you either take it all seriously or take none of it seriously. This half and half stuff just mixes up how I feel during certain moments. So, but that's it from me. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on this episode? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Legends of Tomorrow reviews. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.